One should get this
Yep.
is recording.
Right.
Okay, good to go.
Well, welcome everyone. This is fantastic to see so many people join our Affirm webinar. It's nice to see you. It's been a long time. We go back a few years to Youth Forum, and so this is exciting. I just, as Pix mentioned, my name is Ross Sherwood, and I'm part of the Affirm team with the region. And I'm just looking forward to today, and hopefully the breakout sessions are wonderful, and I know we're looking forward to hearing what B has to say. So welcome all.
Thank you. We go over to Dawn, and you will have to unmute Dawn to do our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Pix. We acknowledge that the land on which we are gathered is a traditional and unceded territory of several Aboriginal First Nations. May we seek reconciliation, and may all live in peace and harmony on this land.
And just as I go to turn it over to Elizabeth for our opening prayer, just to let you note, when you click on the chat, you'll see that Elizabeth has put her cell phone number in there. And that's if there's something that comes up today that you would like to have some more conversation about and that you don't want it to be a public conversation in this writing format, you could give her a call. So if we see her turn with her phone, we'll know someone's chatting. So thank you for offering that, Elizabeth, today. And thank you for gathering us as we begin.
Thank you, Pix. And you also could send me a text as well as call, so that would be fine. So I'm Elizabeth Stevenson, and I'm one of the members of the Region Affirm Committee. So as the internet gathers us around the screen, I think it's still always a miracle that we can come together in Zoom like this. Let us unite our hearts and minds as Spirit gathers us. Let us pray. Spirit of all people, places, and times, we give thanks for the opportunity to gather today from across the regions with hearts open to be transformed. We give thanks for this united church we are privileged to call ours, which connects us in worship and work. This afternoon, we celebrate that created in holy image, we are of many colors and cultures, ages and classes, gender and gender identities. Different and alike, we are beloved people. In our time together, may we find minds and hearts eager to learn, and imaginations responsive to the leading of your loving Spirit. In our work together, we renew our commitment to make this a region of faith for all people, that all who worship and minister here may know the grace and challenge of faithful following. This is our prayer. Amen.
Thank you for that, Elizabeth. And may we all just take a moment to, we're connected. And if we get unconnected from us, please let's not panic. This will be recording. The recording will be on the website for Fundy St. Lawrence Dawning Waters. You can go there and find this group. So our guest today is Captain Reverend Beatrice Gale, and we're so glad to have you with us, B. For many of us here, we know B from, as was mentioned already, Youth Forum and Intermediates at Conference, and a great musician and a person of, some energy, I would say. And so we're really happy that you were agreeable to join us as we're on our faith journey together to learn, to open our circles wide. And just in my conversations with B getting prepared for this, I've had learnings and taken notes. And so I'm looking forward to what is going to be shared today. At whatever point B thinks is a good point to stop, we'll stop for breakout groups. I'll make those groups and off we'll go. We'll take 10 minutes only. So just to remind, when you're in a group of 4 or 5, you have to think about how much can I say so that everyone gets a chance to speak. We'll come back and we can take some questions, comments through the chat box, and we'll bring some of those to the whole group. But I know we'll try to stay to our timelines for these webinars, which are 75 minutes to 90, but we try to keep it around the 75. So welcome, B. We're so glad that you are here.
Well, thank you so much, Pix. Thank you to everyone for being here. This is really exciting. My dog is now asking just right now to go out to pee. Just give me 1 second. I'm right here by the door. Good timing. So I'm actually very excited to see some of the people here. There's so many people that I'd like to say hello to, and I can't because it just there are so many. But I do want to point out I see Aaron, which is really exciting. It's good I haven't seen you in so long, and Pam, of course. So anyway, but there's so many of you I know so very well, and so and I miss you. And this might be your first time meeting me, although I really am the same person. It's nothing has really changed. So I want to start by acknowledging that the territory by which that I come from was once occupied, once under the care of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat people. I am an ordained United Church minister. I started in ministry in Prince Edward Island, where I was a student minister for 5 years and was ordained there. And then I was 3 years, so I was Memorial United Church in Murray River. And funny side story for anybody who's from PEI, our current director of cadets at RMC, where I'm currently working, is from Murray River. So it was like, yeah, it's actually, yeah, it's, oh goodness, I can't believe I can't remember her first name right now. Louise Blue's niece. But anyway, wow. You know, it's a small country. It's a small military. I mean, it's a huge land that we're from. I spent 3 years in Nova Scotia after that, Brookfield, Middle Stewiacke, and had a great time there. Then I spent 7 years in the military. Just gonna let Thea in. Sorry about that. So most of the time I've spent with the combat arms, in particular the infantry. I've been a chaplain, of course, the whole time, but I spent most of my time with the infantry. I deployed to Latvia in 2020 with the Royal Canadian Regiment for 7.5 months during the COVID years, and that was very interesting. A real eye-opening experience that has helped me to appreciate Canada so much more. But I will say that during my time on deployment was when it was actually just before I went away on deployment that I started to come out to people as transgender. So that was that goes back to about then. Although I did tell people throughout my ministry time, the odd people that I was wrestling with my gender identity. It was I will say that I had experienced that people are not very good sometimes at keeping a secret, and so I found that it was something that I couldn't tell people that, you know, that if one of the lessons today that I'd really like you to take is if somebody talks to you about wrestling with their gender identity, this is something that you mustn't share with anybody else. Like, this is something that you have to keep to yourself because it is a very vulnerable time for them. And I will say that I probably it delayed me quite a bit of time when I told somebody, oh, this is way back, probably in 2010, 2010, I told somebody, and then somebody else approached me about the subject, and I knew that it had to be that they had told them. So I want to say hello to the people watching the recording. If there are people that are going to be watching this recorded, and God bless you for taking the time to learn a little bit about gender identity and how we can welcome people from a diverse gender identity into our communities of faith. I feel very, very fortunate to be part of the United Church of Canada. I never once throughout through my time of coming out was concerned about the state of my ordination. And that's something remarkable. It really is. So that's not the case in any other church. I think that is that's something that we maybe don't celebrate enough. Now, how employable am I at the pastoral charge level is another question. I would like to think that I could still find employment in a pastoral charge, but I know that would be that certainly it would be not as easy for me as it might have been when I presented as male. So I will talk a little bit about my coming out story, just to sort of situate you. Here, I'm sorry. I'm gonna there's my puppy. There she is. Anyway, she's not a puppy anymore. She's an old dog, and yeah, yes. So this is something I've wrestled with my whole life. I didn't really understand what it meant to be transgender, or I didn't even really have the words for that when I was growing up. All I knew is that I like to dress in women's clothes, and so I considered myself a cross-dresser for a long time, a secret cross-dresser, and it's something I did throughout my entire life. It was only by having some experiences talking to people about their gender identities, or people who had friends who had diverse gender identities, that I realized that, oh, this is actually something quite different, something more. And it's really quite amazing to, I can't believe I'm here. I honestly, me 10 years ago would be appalled by me. Honestly, I was the part of me that I tried my hardest to repress and to hide. And I don't know if you know, those words that are not good words. Anything that, anything that we, just thinking about it from a scriptural perspective, a gospel perspective, anything that we have to hide, God knows. And I actually felt very strongly throughout my life that that God knew me and saw me and loved me for who I was. And maybe you can give some credit to my United Church upbringing for that. I do. But although I felt that God loved me and God loved my feminine self, I did not love me. I hated that about myself quite a bit. And it came to a point where I realized that either I was going to have to stop hiding, or I was probably going to die. And that was sort of the breaking point. I thought that by coming out as transgender, I never feared to lose my job with the military. I never feared losing my ordination, but I was pretty sure I was going to lose my family, all of my friends, anybody who had ever met me, anybody I knew. None of them were going to talk to me anymore, because I felt that I was that kind of unacceptable. I felt like I was that kind of disgusting, honestly. That's the word I would say about how I felt about myself. I'm still working through those feelings, honestly, but I am so glad that I get to be me. Like, it actually is quite exciting. And what has been most remarkable about that journey is how I didn't lose friends. I didn't lose anybody, really. Actually, I have widened my circle, and I feel, I guess, like I'm in my own skin now. And it's that old version of me, that costume I used to wear is gone. And it's like, I didn't put it in the closet. I was in the closet. I came out of the closet, and I'm not going back in. And that part of me has been shed. And now this is, you know, here's some new wineskin ready for some new wine. And so I am actually very excited about the intersection between theology and gender identity, because I think there's a lot of rich scripture that actually helps to support the idea of new identity, in particular in Christian in Christian theology, which is exciting to me. But I will say that in the gender diverse population, Christians are probably the scariest people. They are the most threatening, the most dangerous, and the most despicable. And so I confuse a lot of people for a variety of reasons. For one, I confuse people because I am a person of faith. I do believe in, I believe in Jesus. I believe that I believe in God. I believe that I know it sounds weird. I believe that Jesus dies so that I can be who I am today. And I understand that all the guilt that I'm carrying, and that's a whole other story. I'd really like to talk about that to anybody who's interested in talking about it. But more importantly, I just need you to know, I want you to know that about me, because when you are going to encounter people, gender diverse people, they come with a history, and they come with quite often a sense of shame, of guilt, and because it's not all great coming out. Like certainly in this current political context, we know that that transgender people are targeted as and I believe it's very much as a political tool, in particular by the religious right, to garner votes from people who are afraid of what gender identity is and what diversity of gender identity means. I am convinced that most of these people don't really understand what they are, what they're voting against or what they're voting for. I think that it just is a scary thing. And so I love this opportunity to be with you. And I imagine probably because you're already here that a lot of you already are not on the fence about this. You're like, hey, you go girl, you be you, right? And so thank you. I need that. I need it a lot. So don't stop with that. But I also, know that there'll be a lot of people that you interact with who will be on the fence, who may not have ever met a transgender person. Now, let's, I wanted, in my notes, I said to talk about what is gender diversity, and it's actually quite broad, a lot more than we might think. The simplest aspect of gender diversity is a person is gender diverse if, when when we're born, the doctor takes a look in between our legs and says, it's a boy or it's a girl. That's how it works. Even though there are instances where people have shown both male and female sex characteristics, they decide one way or the other which the child is going to be. Now that is changing. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about intersex people, but it actually is a really important conversation. For one, it's an important conversation because the studies in Canada have shown that the genetic testing is actually more difficult than, to find out. Our chromosomal testing is actually quite difficult and expensive. But in chromosomal tests in Canada, when they're done, they have estimated that up to 2 or over 2% of the population is actually intersex, and only 1 in 1,000 of those people have displayed sex characteristics of the opposite sex that they were assigned at birth. So that means that, you said there were 70 people registered today. The stats would say at least 1 person here is intersex and does not know it. Being intersex just it's a chromosomal thing, and we actually are learning through studies that early intervention in a child's life to make them reflect the gender identity that they most closely seem to be can actually be very emotionally damaging to children as they grow up, and often that information may even be hidden from them because the old way of thinking was that intersex people should not know that they're intersex. We're just going to surgically fix this and then not tell them. So that is not a very good way for people to be. And so intersex pride is a big thing. I can't really talk about it because to the best of my knowledge, I am not intersex. But gender diversity does go beyond the binary. Now, I do fall within the binary. I identify as trans feminine, a trans feminine woman. So that means that you know, that I am falling within the binary. But if I really was telling the truth, I feel like I feel like I don't get to say that anyway. So I actually feel quite comfortable like along the gender spectrum, definitely trans feminine. I was like 100%. That's how I want to present. That's how I want people to see me. But as far as what my gender identity is, although I have F on my birth certificate now, my passport, and I am female, I would probably say that I'm probably 75% female. And actually, it is more like that when we think about gender diversity. So there are people that that consider themselves non-binary, which means they don't fall within the gender binary. So they might fall somewhere in between. Within non-binary, you will find people that are gender fluid. That means that they're going to move in between the spectrum. That some days they want to present feminine, other days they want to present more masculine. And you're going to have some people that don't identify with any gender. It's called agender. And so that means for them, quite often, any pronoun is okay with them. And you know, although often they'll use they, them pronouns. Pronouns are a big thing. We're going to come back to pronouns. But gender diversity is essentially anybody who feels that they do not identify with the sex that the doctor assigned to them when they were born. It is considered gender diverse. As for the percent of the population, there is some growing trends with younger populations. Just like there is concerns that this may be due to social influences. If gender is on a spectrum, it doesn't really make sense that all of us are 100% all the time. I'm 100% extroverted. I understand that. I really am very, very extroverted. I mean, nobody's 100% anything, but I get that. But really, you can feel comfortable. You say, I'm extroverted, even if you're 60% extroverted in the Myers-Briggs test, right? Gender is on a spectrum. It's a social construct. And although hormones have an effect, and that the genitals we're born with do have an effect over the hormones that go into our body and affect our body. Like, for example, testosterone, which, if I'm going to be cheeky, for me was a poison and was killing me. I feel had certain effects on my body that are very difficult to reverse. For example, my voice is lower because testosterone stretches the vocal cords. That's a one-way thing. So for transmasculine people, when they take testosterone, their voice can lower. But for trans feminine people, when I'm on estrogen replacement therapy, hormone replacement therapy, and estrogen will not raise my voice at all. Now, I have taken some voice training, but it's something I have to work on in order. And my partner will say, well, why do you have to work on it? You can have like a low voice. There's nothing wrong with that. But it does create situations when I'm out in public where people will get confused about how I want to be referred to and how I want to be identified. And so that ends up being often on the onus of the person who is gender diverse. Why is welcoming gender diversity important in the church? So, as I said, it is a very hot button topic right now, and there's a lot of people that are not welcome in other places. We know that in the United States, there are certain states, like, for example, last year, my family and I were going to go to Florida to Disney World. We love Disney World. But at that time, before we went, a law was passed that say that in public buildings, that you must go to the bathroom that it corresponds with your sex assigned at birth. So that means that if I was at the airport, I would have to use a men's room. And I can tell you, I would not feel safe using a men's room. I would not feel, I just wouldn't. It just is not a place for a person like me. It's not, it's, you know, and that, you know, like all of the bathroom politics are really over the fact that, you know what, going to pee in public places is one of the scariest things in my life right now, which is weird because I'm also in the military, right? Like you know, I've gone to places where war can break out. I am more worried about going to your local gas station and somebody yelling at me in the bathroom. I'm actually more likely, statistically, to be injured or to be the victim of an act of violence because of that. So it's important to welcome gender diversity because gender diverse people are not welcome in a lot of different places. And I believe that Jesus calls us to be particularly welcoming to those that are shut out in other places, regardless of what you think about gender politics or gender identity. At very least, if we can be respectful about what other people feel about themselves, then we should reach out and try to meet them where they are. You know, if for example, if you know, Elizabeth is at the top here of my screen. If Elizabeth says, you know, I want to be known as Beth, and I insist on calling her Lizzie, it's going to be annoying to her. She's not going to think I'm a very nice person. She's not going to like it. And honestly, you know, and then, but she has the right to say how she wants to be referred to. Like that is her personal right as a human being. It's her right actually under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms as well. But you know, but outside of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, even when it comes to her name, if she says, I want to be called Elizabeth, and I start calling her Lizzie, or I saw Zab, one Elizabeth called Zab. I really like that, but or Zeb, that was it, Zeb. But the you know, like it's up to her, and so it's respectful then to call people what they want to be called by. Now, there are, you know, like for example, my partner, her name is Tabitha, but she hates it when anybody calls her Tabby. But oddly, I call her Tabby all the time. I always have. And she said, no, I don't mind when you call me Tabby. I don't mind when my mom calls me Tabby. But if I don't know you, no, you don't get to call me that, right? That shows me that you're becoming too familiar. And even at that, it's like a level of familiarity that she only wants from the people that are closest to her. So that said, I have legally changed my name. I go by Beatrice. I like Beatrice, but I prefer B because honestly, B. Arthur is a little bit of a hero of mine. B. Arthur was very, very instrumental in the 1980s, financing financing care for people who were had HIV/AIDS, and visited people who had HIV at a time when the knowledge was not there to know that you could visit them and not get it. Like, she was not afraid, and so she's one of my heroes. To be honest with you, Beatrice was not on my list of names. My naming story is long, but the short story is I went away for like 3 days on a spiritual retreat to try to choose my name. It was something that was really torturing me. I knew it was a really important decision. My partner and I drafted up this list of like 70 names that were acceptable, and Beatrice was not on it, just so you know. What happened was it came out of this idea of I wanted to learn how to be myself. And then when I looked up the name Beatrice, it comes from Beatrice etymologically shares etymological roots with the Beatitudes. It means bringer of a joyful blessing. And so I was like, yeah, you know what? That's what I want to be. That's who I've always wanted to be. So that's where the name comes from. Sorry, I'm supposed to be talking about why is it important to welcome people, gender diverse people. So it is because a lot of people, the vast majority of gender diverse people, will lose their families by coming out. Like the stats are staggering on this. up to 75% of people lose all contacts with their families when they come out as gender diverse. That's terrible. People, looking at Ontario stats, Transpulse Ontario, this is a very remarkable stat, which I think is really important for us to hold up as a church, as a people who are learning to love, especially those that don't get the loves that they should get from other places. The statistics say that they did a widespread study of transgender people in Ontario. This is back in it was the 2010s, so it was a while ago. But I can't remember the exact date right now. I should have wrote it down. I'm sorry. But the Transpulse Ontario found that they did it was like all the transgender people they could find over the age of 18. And they did a study, and there was like they had 300 and some transgender people in Ontario, and they asked them about certain aspects, and this is what they found: people who are gender diverse, who do not have access to the supports they feel they need, are very likely in that year to have attempted suicide. So the statistics are 28% of people each year, 28% of people that year attempted suicide if they felt that this is a Canadian stat, if they felt that they did not have the supports they required. People who reported having the supports they required, suicidality went down below 1%. Attempted suicide was less than 1% for that year. In fact, attempted suicides were in line with other demographic factors. So this tells us that for a gender diverse population, suicidality is directly correlated with access to supports. And what are the supports that people need? There certainly are plenty in healthcare, which we might have more difficulty influencing accessing, but access to a community. And so people who are going through gender transition have a hard time finding places where their gender identity is going to be celebrated, where it's going to be accepted. And I think the church is like, we have a great opportunity here to say, come to church. We will call you by whatever name you want to be called by. We will do our best to use the pronouns that you want us to use, even if it's something strange to us, like Z, Zim, like even if it's something we've never heard of before. We're going to try. And yes, we're going to get it wrong, but we're going to try, and we're going to make a concerted effort to try. And so I'll partly at the end of today, I want to give you some concrete tips on how to actually make it look like you're trying, but also how to succeed, because there is proven ways how to make it work. I understand it's not easy. Like, if you knew me from before, it's not going to be easy for you to get it right. You're going to have to practice. You have to practice. That's sort of the big secret. You got to practice. But anyway, so how do we welcome people? I do want this to be one of our the breakout group conversations. But I will say that I'm just going to give a few things. Like, for example, I already said to use people's names that they're asking you to use their chosen pronouns. We don't say chosen pronouns. That's a slip for me. We use their pronouns. It's not a choice. It is an identity. We're going to stay away from certain words. Like one of the big trigger words for me is the word transgendered with an ed. Just like you would not say that I am femaled, I am female, right? I am not whited, I'm white, right? I'm not, I'm not mothered, I am a mother. Same way, I am not transgendered, I am transgender. It is ultimately, one of the interesting things about being transgender is the end goal is to be invisible again, that you would not know that I ever was anything else other than female. And you might even have transgender people around you you don't even know that they are. It surprised me when I came out in the military that there were a number of people who were actually transgender that I had had interactions with, I did not know they were trans. I did not know. So that's another thing too. If you want to be totally safe, stay away from the word trans. Trans is a word that trans people use, often to refer to themselves, but typically, if you're not, transgender is the appropriate term. You try not to shorten it, because it, trans can mean a lot of different things. And also, I think that another thing that you can do that is so we know there was the Million for Children march that happened across the country twice in the last few months. If you show up to those sorts of demonstrations with a message saying that you're from the church, I think that's a very powerful thing, because I can tell you that a huge number of transgender people from the transgender community, just do not believe that the church loves them. They do not believe that the church cares about them. In fact, they're pretty convinced that church people are their enemies. And so, we know that one of the hallmarks of Christianity is learning how to love our enemies. But that, so I think that one of the ways that we can challenge people to that Christian style of love is to walk into those dangerous places where we know, just so you know, you might get some anger. You might get some frustration from that community. If you do, I say, then blessed are you when you speak truth in Jesus' name, even when they cast you out, even when they reject you. Like that's the places where you need to be, because it's the place where the message is needed most direly. And honestly, by going into those spaces, you are telling them that it's like, not all churches, not all Christians believe this. And in fact, if you want, I'm just going to feed you a nice little scriptural defense here, if you want to use it. The only place in the Bible where it talks about cross-dressing, which is quite often conflated with transgender issues, is in Deuteronomy 20. I'm so good at this. I should have looked that up for 25, I believe. Deuteronomy, 2 verses before that, where it says that people who, essentially women who wear men's clothing and men who wear women's clothing, should be stoned to death. 2 verses before that, it also says that a woman who's raped should marry her rapist. So if they do not believe that, then I'm not sure that the Deuteronomic law that they're citing really applies to, what clothes you wear. So it's really important for us to realize that, and again, like, what was that about at the time? If a woman was raped in 400 BCE, then she may be discarded and may not be accepted back in her family. So yes, I understand those laws where they might have come from, but we think that this is not appropriate anymore. I don't think I need to have a poll, and I don't know any biblical well, okay, that might be a lie. I might have met 1 or 2 in my time, but most, even people who ascribe to biblical literalism rather than being biblically serious, I always say I take the Bible seriously, not literally, would say that that a rapist should not have to marry her rapist. Somebody who's raped should have to marry the rapist. Sorry, I know I should have given a trigger warning for that, because there's it's anyway. Sorry, I just got a little worked up there, and now I'm coming down on the other side of things about. I want to save this for after, because I'm very interested in people going into your breakout groups and coming up with some ideas of how you might be able to welcome gender diverse population. How does that seem like seems like a good time? What do you think, Pix?
Yes, it'll just take me a moment to get us into those groups. So we're at 39 people at the moment. So I'm going to put us in groups of 4. And you will get a little notice that asks you, tells you which group you're in, but will ask you to click here to go to that group. So some people forget to click and then they're left out. So just give me a moment and let me do this.
See you, Erin. Oh, yes. So I'm going to repeat the discussion, the question we're going to be discussing. Thank you, Mary. So we're going to be discussing how can we, what are some things we can do at our communities of faith to become more welcoming to gender diverse people. And what I'm hoping is when we come back, everybody can report an idea or two that they have come up with about how they in their congregations or their communities of faith might be more welcoming to gender diverse people.
Okay, I'm ready to click our button. And if you want to see that question again, it is written here in the, no, I guess it isn't written. Maybe Elizabeth, can you just write it in for us quickly? Okay, so you can see it there. So I'm just going to open all the rooms now and you can decide if you want to be in a room. If you don't, just don't accept it. Okay, and that's fine.
And how long are we meeting?
10 minutes. There we go. So I think we're all still muted, I think. I'll mute all. Yes, okay. We might have had some new folks join us. I don't know, but if you have a question that you'd like to raise or something you'd like to share from your time in small group, you can put it here in the chat box. If it's that you don't have to speak on everybody's behalf if you haven't decided on that, but I'm going to turn it over to you, B.
Well, thank you very much, Pix. So I am interested to hear if you had any, what some of the ideas coming out of that group was. We don't have a lot of time. We only have about 15 minutes left. But I think that it's worth sharing. One of the things I will say about, I imagine that, one of the things I see congregations doing that matters is, some pride identifiers is somehow. I did go to an affirming congregation here in Kingston, which was worshiping at another building. And I went to that church because it said it was affirming. And I noticed that on the bulletin from, there's nothing the church has said I was welcome, and there was nothing said. And so you have to think that a lot of people who are coming to your communities of faith might be afraid to come. And so it's really important to have those, it needs to be explicit, those signs to say, so a rainbow flag or something printed on the bulletin or on your screen, or some words of welcome saying, that we welcome all people, of sexual orientations, gender identities, those sorts of things is really powerful, and it really sends a strong message. I will say that for gender diverse people, there is not unanimity from within the 2S LGBTQI plus community that the T should be a part of it. So transgender people also face discrimination and harassment from within the 2S LGBTQI plus community. So, you know, as much as it's, so what do you do? Like, you know, so I would love it if you'd fly a transgender flag as well, transgender pride flag, which is the blue, pink, white, pink, blue one. I know there's also the progress flag, which I think is really great. My kids don't like it for some reason. They think that it's too cluttered. But I really like the progress flag. There's the new progress flag, which has the intersex sign on it as well. So if you are flying a rainbow flag, changing to a progress flag is a nice gesture. So what do you? So at this point, I'm going to open it up to both things. So if you have any ideas that came out of your groups, or if you have any questions, I would love to address some of those things now.
And are you reading the chat there? We have
I-
someone saying that changing scripture readings and words of hymns to use gender neutral / inclusive language as much as possible, especially if words to either or are projected by a PowerPoint.
Yes, this is actually really good. So thank you, Mary Jo. This is very, very important. Or, you know, like that we realize that a lot of these things are situated in their own context and history, and that using inclusive language is incredibly important. You know, it really does say who might be welcome and who may not be welcome. Or so neutral, inclusive language is really important. Last, not this Remembrance Day, but the Remembrance Day prior, I remember at the church I was at, United Church said, "We're now going to sing O Canada out of the hymn book." And I was like, "No, you're not. Those are not the words anymore." Like I was in uniform and I sang as loud as I could the new words, but they it's like out of the hymn book, we're going to sing this. That is not the words that we sing anymore. But anyway, I see McDonald, Ian?
Brian.
Sorry, Brian. Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
good to see you, Brian.
You too, B. Yes, I'm still working as a chaplain with cadets. It's Cadets Training Center Argonaut, and we do see a number of cadets who are struggling with their gender identity. Do you have any particular advice for someone who's trying to be supportive of a young person in that point in their lives?
Oh yeah, so I know I touched a little bit on you know, transgender minors. This is a really prickly issue, of course, and I understand there are people from New Brunswick here. I would say that what you can do as an individual is you can let them know that you see them, you value them, and you respect them, and that you will do whatever you can to do whatever they're asking. The biggest thing to do is to ask the question, how can I be supportive? And then follow through.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But that is a touchy subject.
Yeah, understood.
Anybody else have anything? Don't be shy.
Thank you, B. It's Keith Wiseman. I don't have my camera on. I can't get it on, but I'm here listening in. Our group, we had a really, really great discussion. One of the things, one of the questions was how many of us in the group of 4 knew of a transgender person, or if they were in our congregations, and half of us, 2 of us said we haven't met transgendered people in our congregation. And I made the comment that we are already a welcoming church, and I know the other side of the coin where, you know, we have to wave the flag that indeed we are welcoming. Mary Jo Harrison also made another comment, and for those of us who are not yet on the bandwagon, she said you have to do better whether or not transgender persons are in the room. So there are not transgender persons in my room, as in people coming to church, But Mary Jo said that even with, sorry to single you out, Mary Jo, but you did say this. But you said that even the hymns, you know, when transgender persons arrive, well, do they want to hear brother and sister? Are we ready for them so that the hymn will say siblings, or whatever we do to change the words that make them feel welcome and loved? And so, yeah, thanks, Mary Jo. You have to do better, whether or not transgender persons are in the room. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
That's a really good point. Thank you very much, Keith. Yes, so the question is, this is actually a huge thing that has helped me realize why the issue right now is such a hot button issue, is that a lot of people think that they don't know a transgender person, and the statistical likelihood of you not ever having met somebody or knowing somebody is incredibly low. You may have people that are closeted within your congregation, certainly within their families. If somebody's not out, then they're probably closeted. And so that is, and I use that as an ED because it's something happening to them. It's not something they are. So that it is incredibly important that we then tighten up our language, or be very explicit about the fact that we are welcoming. I know you said we are a welcoming congregation, but then it's like, so how do we show it? And so like this, showing the flags. I mean, I love Mary's, are those beach towels? Or are they flags? Are they knitted? I can't tell.
I knit them. I made them.
You knitted them?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, they're gorgeous.
Thank
That's
you.
so good. Oh my goodness.
We're going to add those. We didn't have the transgender flag before. Sorry to interrupt, but now it will be added.
Thank you. It does, you know, it's a very powerful symbol, because although the pride flag is a nice universal symbol, it is really the gender diverse community right now that is feeling excluded and not welcomed. So they do not feel like church is a place they can go. They don't even know that they can go to your communities of faith. So it's actually, that message is very, very strong to say, you know, to fly that flag or to put it up, especially somewhere visible, says something. And then the expectation is now you've got to follow through, right? Not always easy.
Yeah.
Heather.
B, can I just ask you to clarify about the, sorry, Heather, I cut you off, that you'll be next. The progressive flag, it's a combination of the rainbow flag with the colors kind of coming out in a point. Am I correct?
Yeah, so the progress flag is
Progress flag, sorry, yes.
So, and there's a newer progress flag too, but it's the pride flag with it has the transgender colors, but also has the colors for BIPOC queer individuals as well. So it has a black and brown stripe as well,
Yes,
which
yeah.
represents you know, intersectionality and racial inclusion. And the new progress flag has a yellow center with a purple circle in it, which is for the intersex community. And it's just a way to say that it's not just LGB people that are welcome, but it's the entire 2S LGBTQI plus community. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Heather, go ahead. Thank you for that.
Just a quick story. So in Glasgow, we've had a lot of transition, people selling houses and young people, families moving in, and we have a flag. So every seasonal flagpole, and it changes for every month, kind of a thing. So obviously we put the diverse pride flag out during Pride Month, and a new family was walking through the community and they saw the flag. We happened to be out with Bella, and we heard them say, "We can always go to that house. They are welcoming." And they were young little children that are walking when they said it and noticed it, and we were like, "Oh!" So it does mean something.
It does mean something. So when we moved into this new community where we're in Kingston, we saw somebody with a number of pride flags flying on their lawn around the corner from the house we bought, and it really did give us a feeling like this was going to be a safe community, and it is where we are. We're very fortunate. Now, other places in Kingston, people have had, like, we fly a progress flag out in front of our house, a new progress flag. In other places in Kingston, those flags have been destroyed or yeah. There, thank you, Tina. There, that's the one. Yeah, I really like it. I like it. Now I will say my kids don't. I don't, and I can't tell you why. They like the pride flag. They like the trans flag. They are just not crazy with the progress flag, but we still fly it out in front of our house. Any other ideas, questions? I was thinking, I'll tell you, like, if somebody put up your hand or even just unmute your mic if you want to, but one of the things I was thinking coming into this was that it would be nice to say, you know, hey, you know, gender diverse people of our community, if you want to come somewhere where we're going to use your pronouns and name, it will be here. Like when you come here, this is what we're going to do for you. And I think that that would be a piece of outreach, which would be very powerful. You know, the often I think that, or even it's like, you know, when I was first coming out, it's like, where can I go? Where am I going to be welcome? And of course, you know, it's just scary. It's very scary to make the leap. I don't think about it anymore, but at first it was the most terrifying thing in the world was just being out. Yeah. Oh, it's okay if there's no other questions. That's perfectly fine. I want to say how much I appreciate that people have come here to listen, to explore a
Andrew,
little. And
Excuse me.
hi, Mike.
Andrew,
Okay,
Oh, hi,
Andrew.
Mary.
we do have Mary is going to, oh,
No, Andrew wants to talk.
Oh, Andrew. Maybe, do I not see all the hands?
I didn't put a hand up, but I have a question, B.
Andrew.
So we talked about signage for bathrooms for church. I came across this, I think it was in a pub. How do you react to that?
Well, it's kind of cute. It's a little weird, but I don't mind it. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't mind it. I think universal bathrooms make a lot of sense, or at least having bathrooms that like that. Like I said, going to the bathroom is very, very scary for especially people that are newly gender diverse or in certain areas. Yeah, I had to. I mean, total transparency, honesty. I had a bathroom dream last night. It was just like, you know, just it being scary to go to the bathroom. I was in a public space, and it was just like the dream was only I really have to pee, and oh my goodness, I hope that this will not be a bad experience. And then I realized that I should get up and go pee, and I did. So I made it. The pee
these,
dream.
this is we like to think a simple thing, but we're realizing it's not a simple thing, you know, so just having bathrooms for everybody seems to be the great yeah, the great equalizer.
It is a big
Well,
one.
I think you've given us.
I do want to finish. Sorry to cut you off,
No.
Kix. So I just want to do a few like do nots. Okay, so like just at the end, things that you should not do. One is, so if you make a mistake, you should not apologize profusely. So this is actually really important. You need to so if you make a mistake, you apologize, and then you restate the statement using the correct name or pronouns. This is actually incredibly important. This is creating new neural pathways. Earlier, I talked about learning, right? So you need to don't take all the urinals away. Urinals are weird. Like I don't get that. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that debate right now. But you know, do you have a urinal at home? Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm definitely not going to get in. I should have watched myself. I see that some of the ideas that Kate has brought up here, really great, talking about being in the parade, being explicit on social media, very powerful, sharing the transgender affirming theology on their Facebook page, and then supporting individuals is really the big thing. And if you can, you know, giving them the space. So if you make a mistake, then apologize once, and if you have to, and then do it again using the right name or pronoun. Like, so if you apologize profusely, you're putting your guilt onto the other person, and it actually is really not helpful. The other thing that you should not do is you should not use the person's dead name unless they can use it. You should not, if you can help it. Now, if they tell you that if you're a close friend of theirs and they refer to themselves that way all the time, that's a different thing. But that would be an exception. The rule is to not use the person's dead name. But I think the biggest thing is practice. You mentioned the thing I wanted to say is, what do you do when the person is not around and somebody makes a mistake? Then you should definitely point it out. You should say, there's nothing that would make me happier than if somebody makes a mistake when I'm in the room, if somebody else corrects them, because I get tired of it. And so it'd be really nice if somebody says, like if they say he and somebody else would say, oh, no, she or they or, Z, whatever. And then you go, oh, yes, thank you. I'm sorry. Z said this, or Zay said that, or whatever. So, that's really important. So it's important to correct yourself, use the new name and pronouns, to practice when the person is not around, and to make sure that the language that you're using is tightened up. One of the Transgender Day of Remembrances I was at, well, not this year, but the last year, because this year is just coming up. So the last one I was at, so this Sunday will be the Transgender Day of Remembrance, Sunday closest, I guess, because it's on the 20th of November. They used the Spirit Open Our Hearts, which is a lovely hymn, but it talks about the joy of sister brother, which definitely is binary, not inclusive. So just making sure that if you are going to have special days or special sorts of things, that we just watch our language and that we do our best. And when we mess up, this is the best thing about the Christian doctrine. We got tons of grace. We believe in a grace-filled God. Forgive yourself so that you can extend that generosity to other people. Keep on trying, keep being better, keep growing, and let your love blossom and flourish. Thank you so much for being interested in the topic of gender diversity and for being the church in our world, which says that people are beloved. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We're all giving you a clap. We're so happy.
Am I at the end of this? I just came on. Am I at the end of the session?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Andrew, you are. Yes, but it is recorded.
Can I make one comment? Can I make one comment?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
And you can catch it. You can catch the whole thing on the website. It's recorded.
Okay. I'm a retired vice principal for the Toronto Board, and the last school I was at, it was the Etobicoke School of the Arts, and I had quite a few transgender students. So one of the things that I did is I spoke to the secretary at the school, because I was a vice principal there. I had about 13 students that identified as transgender. So I asked the secretary, would you please write down the names and the pronouns they want to be called at the school? Because sometimes the parents don't know this is information, and what information the parents want, like what the parents call them. So because I was running into problems when I was dealing with students, they'd say, I told you already, I go by she or they or whatever. And I was feeling hurt by it. And I'm a gay man, and I was learning as well, right? So she made a list, and then I would check the list before I saw a student, and it really helped, because sometimes you don't hear, or you're not listening carefully to what they want to be called and how they want to be approached. And it made a really big difference. Now, I know it's not a church thing, but if you get information, I think recording it down, whatever way you can remember, it really helps, because then they feel that they've been recognized as who they are. But it was a big learning experience for me as a gay man. Like I thought I knew a fair bit, but not in the transgender area. So it's an education. And I think B, you said that
Thank
you know,
you. Yeah,
yeah.
thanks, Andrew. I think this is another thing. So like if you're having problems, like if it's somebody you know well, or somebody that's in your community of faith that has come out and you're having a lot of problems making the switch, try different things. Like write down, I'm glad I know B. I'm glad she comes to my church, right? Like, so you write that down. It actually does something in your brain and will help you. So, again, not to apologize profusely, but to correct it and then practice is really important as well.
Well, thank you again. I know that everyone here has learned something, and we go step by step, little by little, changing and learning new things. And so thank you for coming out to listen. And now I guess we all have to go away with hearts wide open, hearing these words in our own minds and hearts, hearing how we're being led around the people that we bump into, people that we know well. Like we've just heard, we don't know who we know. And so let's just create safe environments for everyone who come our way. So thank you, everyone. I'll just remind our committee members that we're going to stay on for a little debrief as we usually do. B, thank you so much for taking some time with us here today. And we'll see you, I know, on January the 17th. The Affirm Committee will be offering another webinar, and this time around mental health. And so please keep your eye on the advertisements from the region, the announcements, and get the information about that one too. All right, everyone, let us go from this place inspired, encouraged, and ready to be the people we need to be in our world today. Thank you for coming.
Oh, you just started recording.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but I did